Hey, sorry it's been like almost 2 weeks since my last video. Actually, I think as of you seeing this video, it's gonna be like 2 weeks since my last video. But I had a lot of catching up to do on another channel that you guys don't care about. Anyway, let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons. So, welcome back to another DM tips. This is something that I've been wanting to do pretty much ever since I wanted to do Dungeons and Dragons content, and that is how to set up a session. One of the things that is a big joke in the Dungeons and Dragons community is don't ever prepare anything because your players are just going to ruin it and then you're going to feel bad and blah blah blah. And it's kind of a meme, but some people have also taken it to heart, and I'm here to tell you that that's not necessary. Preparing a session is incredibly important as a dungeon master because mostly it's because of the time sink, right? You want to prepare a session as a dungeon master because you don't want to spend a lot of time flipping through books for monster stat blocks and trying to figure out where things are going to go from where you're at and all this other stuff. You want to keep things as uniform as possible so that you can give your players the experience they deserve without having to break the immersion too often. So today I'm going to walk you through some very simple steps on how to create a session plan or a session outline, and then at the end we're going to use that to outline a one-shot for ourselves. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and hope you guys enjoy.
I
take how much damage? So, the first thing we want to do when planning a session is understand our players, understand their wants, their goals, and their needs. Now, there is a gigantic thing that I'm going to do an entire other video on how to write your player characters into a pre-existing story in order to effectively pay off storylines that your players give you. But again, that's going to be its own video. For now, we're focusing on the smaller part. So what you want to understand for each session is the outer macro sense. So if you have a player who, say, is looking for someone who killed their parents, I actually have a player right now who is doing that. That's one of their goals. Every session, or every other session, part of my plan is to insert little hints about where the person is who killed their parents. Sometimes this can come to them as a vision and a dream, which is something that happened in the last session. By the way, I actually finally got to find a group and play. I'm very happy. Anyway, another thing that this could be is it could be something like a hint, or maybe they could come across a goon that they recognize, somebody who was part of the person that ended up killing their parents. But this can be done in various other ways. You could have somebody who is looking for their long-lost sister. Again, this could be providing hints. Maybe a description of their sister could show up. Their sister could have a wanted poster on a billboard. Just something that is incredibly simplistic that allows for the player to have some kind of agency within each session. Now, you don't have to do every session this way. Not every day is going to provide a hint to their goal or their outcome. Or something like that, but you want to drop little nuggets here and there until the time comes when it is that player's turn to completely finalize their story. Another thing that you need to understand is how strong your players are. If you're going to be setting up combat encounters, then it's a very good idea to go through your players' character sheets, see all of their different abilities and how their abilities can work within combat in order to provide engaging yet simplistic combat scenarios. That actually leads me to my second point, setting up combat and roleplay encounters. When you're setting up combat and roleplay encounters, the one thing that I want you to focus on is understanding that not every combat has to be difficult, and not every roleplay has to be deep and meaningful. You want your world to feel alive, and when the world feels alive, that means that not every encounter is going to be something where players are going to be challenged to the utmost. Sometimes they're just kicking the shit out of some thugs who decided to start a bar brawl for no reason. Other times they're going to be fighting a powerful creature whose lair that they entered. When it comes to roleplay, sometimes they're going to be learning something very integral to the story or getting to know an NPC that they've been traveling with. And other times it's going to just be some shit talking in the middle of a bar as a form of characterization. You want to make sure that every encounter that you put within your outline is something that the players can utilize to build the world and the experience in some way. You want to put in a combination of things that are difficult and things that are easy. Combat encounters also don't always have to be combat encounters. Very recently, I had my players run into an owlbear in the forest. They are escorting a 13-year-old wizard who ended up fucking with a nest of an owlbear, and the owlbear almost killed them. But even after one of my players got hit by the owlbear, they still actively tried to calm it down with animal handling, and they succeeded as well. And this was great. And my poor player apologized for ruining a combat encounter. I wasn't upset about that. That was a great way to handle that combat. Sometimes the players can't get out of combat, and I do plan on doing a video of that at some point. But it's one of those things where if when you're lining up your encounters, make sure that every single encounter can have multiple ways out. Not every single encounter, but make sure that most encounters, the unimportant encounters, can have multiple ways out of them. The next step is to figure out the goal for the session. Is the goal for the players to come across some big realization about where they're going? For example, in the next session of my campaign, the characters are going to find out the name and the goal of the cult that they have been dealing with for the past 2 sessions. But in further things, my players are going to be finding out certain other aspects of their campaign, in different sessions. Now, sometimes the goal of the session can literally just be a character bonding exercise. Perhaps there is just a travel time. They need to get from one place to the other, and so throughout the session you will line out different encounters for the day, and sometimes you will just say, roleplay it out. Roleplay the day out. You guys do not run into any NPCs, you don't run into any enemies, you just have a quiet day on the road. Roleplay the day out. This is something that you need to understand, that sometimes sessions are just there in order to increase the atmosphere. Think of Dungeons and Dragons as writing a book, almost, except you're writing a book with everybody else involved. You need to be able to pace your story out. Some people might want to hurry up and get to the end of the story. Your big magnificent campaign only lasts for 10 sessions because it only takes 10 sessions to get there. But if you're looking to have long-lasting and good campaigns, then you want to add a little bit of pacing. Next up is write down the steps. This is probably the most important part of this entire video. Once you have the previous things laid out, you want to make sure that you write down everything that you have planned out, right? So the very first day they're going to encounter an ambush from a group of bandits, and the next day they're going to encounter a traveling merchant. The next day they're going to make it to the city. Then you're going to write down how the guards are, the 2 guards, what they look like, how they're going to act. But then once they get into the city, you're going to want to have some shopkeeps available. You're going to want to have a couple of taverns and their names. You're going to want to have all of this stuff kind of planned out for you so that you can actively make sure that you have everything ready to go when your players are actually doing the things that they're doing. You want to make sure you have the map set up with the enemy placements kind of pre-planned out, and you just kind of want to make sure everything is prepared. But don't make it too complicated, which leads us to our next step, and that's to keep it simple when you're writing everything down. You do not need to write the name of every single NPC and describe their clothes in great detail and describe their height and their hair color. When you're doing the bandits, you could just be like, yeah, there's a couple of elven bandits and there's a human, and maybe you throw a goblin in there or something like that. You don't want to overexert yourself because of the next and final step of pre-planning a campaign, which is expect the plan to go off the rails. Step 1, write the plan. Step 2, execute the plan. Step 3, expect the plan to go off the rails. Throw away the plan. The meme is real, guys. Your players are toddlers, okay? And I love my players, but your players are toddlers. They will miss the most obvious shit because they tend to overthink. Your puzzles will be overthought to the point of them spending 2 hours trying to figure out how to open an unlocked door. There will be mountainous amounts of occasions where you put a very obvious plot hook in front of them and your players go all ADHD squirrel and fucking take off in the complete opposite direction. And that is fine. That is perfectly fine. You just take whatever is left in the session that they have not completed and you move it to the next one. The great thing about Dungeons and Dragons, the fantastic thing about this game, and you as the dungeon master, is if your players haven't experienced it yet, you can always put it somewhere else. I will give you a great example. one of my games where I was a player, my very first game I was a player when I was a dungeon master, my DM gave me, I was playing a dragonborn fighter who was an ex-city guard. My DM gave me a bounty for a village, for a bandit that was near of a village, and my team did not go after it. We straight up ignored it. And he had a very, very important story-related artifact in that village. He had to pick up that artifact and place it into a fucking ruin that we chose to go explore instead. It happens sometimes. Sometimes you, as the DM, have to move your shit around. So if you have gotten through halfway of the steps of your session and your players are like, oh my god, I can't believe this, this is crazy, right? Then you just move your shit, right? You can move it to the next session, or you can move everything. If you wanted them to talk to a specific NPC who was sitting in his house having coffee and the players were like, nah, we'd rather go down to the alleyways and shit, then move that important NPC into the alleyway. Now they find that important NPC sitting there having coffee in an alleyway. You know what I mean? You just want to make sure that you can expect stuff to go off the rails, which is why I told you to keep it simple, because sometimes you have to move shit around. Don't overly plan, don't overly detail, but make sure you have some sort of structure. So, first thing we want to do is figure out what our 3 party members are, okay? So we're gonna write this at the top. We've got a barbarian, we've got a bard, and we have a sorcerer. Right now, let's just assume all of them are level 2. So we know what we know what each of their roles are, right? We know that we've got our tank. This is the person that's going to be able to withstand a lot of damage. We've got our support, and we have our glass cannon, or our DPS, right? We know their marching order typically is the barbarian is in the front, taking a lot of the brunt damage. We know that their bard hangs out in the middle. He's going to be casting things like fairy fire and vicious mockery, and then he's going to try to be giving bardic inspiration to his teammates, trying to keep them healthy. He probably also has cure wounds or healing word or something like that that he's going to use to make sure that the barbarian stays alive for as long as possible. And then we have our sorcerer who's in the back line, flinging fireballs and dealing lots of damage. So, what is the goal of the session? The goal of the session, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it up at the top here, is to recover a stolen necklace. Okay? They are going to be recovering a stolen necklace. That is very simple. That's what they're going to be looking for. So let's go ahead and get started, right? So we're going to have our players already together in our party. We already know that they know each other. We established this back in our session 0, or before the game started. Everybody already knows each other. They've been traveling together for, I don't know, let's say about 2 or 3 months at this point. So they're pretty well acquainted. And they come to a town, a little bit of a town, and they're looking for work. They're hungry, they're broke, they need some work. So they go over to the board, and when they get to the bounty board, they're going to discover that there is a call out for a baron who needs sellswords. Okay? So the baron needs sellswords, and then we're going to kind of give some details about the baron. The baron is named Bruce Campbell. I don't know, guys. This is just an example. I'm just doing this all off the top of my head. But the baron's name is Bruce Campbell. Yes, and he is a human. He has a chiseled jaw and brown eyes. Okay. And we'll also give the Baron a little secretary. So we'll say that the Baron's secretary is named Frankfurt. Frankfurt is a gnome. Frankfurt is a gnomish secretary, butler type character, right? This is the character who will answer the door and be like, "Oh yes, I've got you. I understand. Mr. Campbell will be waiting in his office. Come along, sellswords," and like he'll run that over. The next thing that we need to focus on is what the necklace looks like. So we'll put a little bit of a 2 here, and the necklace is gold with a jade dragon claw as the pendant. Easy enough. Finally, where is this necklace? Well, the necklace got stolen by an opposing house within the town. An opposing house, House Parker. By now, some of you might guess what one of my favorite movies of all time is. House Parker is an opposing house who is probably responsible for the theft. Okay? So then the party is going to be sent over to House Parker. So we'll put House Parker as the next step. And when they get to House Parker, let's create the Baron for that one. It's going to be Peter Parker. Okay. Peter Parker is a drow. The Parker family is a little bit less wealthy than the Campbell family, but they have, you know, they still have a servant or two. We're going to have a servant named Harry. Harry is a very short human. Harry, the human, is the servant who answers the door. "Ah, yes, Mr. Parker is in the study. I'm telling you, though, he says he has nothing to do with it." So he, you know, drags them over there, and they go in. And, you know, when they go talk to Parker, Parker says that they had nothing to do with it. Obviously, you know, do with it. And is he lying? The players might ask for a perception check. Is he lying? Can we tell he's lying? Yes, roll me a perception. If they get a 12, now we want to keep it very simple, right? We want to if the players don't ask, just make all of them roll a perception check. Okay, we want to make sure that the players are going along with this, right? So we'll give them a 12 for a DC. If they get it above a 12 on their perception, which most of them should, then they can tell he's lying through his teeth. So next up would be to ask the players how they convince him to tell the truth. Hopefully they don't go murdering the dude, but you know, if they do, then you can probably come up with something, because this is only a one-shot. We're just writing a one-shot, but you know, so try to convince him to tell the truth. And then once they figure it out, they learn that the bandit that was hired for the heist betrayed Parker. Okay, so the bandit that was hired for the heist betrayed Parker. They find out that the bandit's name is Gorosh. Gorosh is a goblin bandit. Goblin bandit captain. And now that you have the combat scenario, you can go into your monster manual or onto the wiki or whatever thing you have, and you can be like, okay, I've got the bandit captain stat block. Just because the bandit captain in the stat block is some big burly pirate looking dude doesn't mean every bandit captain has to be a big pirate looking dude. Don't worry about it, okay? The next up, you're going to create the bandit hideout. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire process of how to do that. Maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. But basically, like literally, you can open up a tab. You can say D&D bandit hideout map. And I guarantee you, I can literally, oh, fuck. Yeah, here we go. Here's a bandit hideout map. Like straight up. You right click, you save the image. And then it's going to come up to your folders, and then you can save your image and whatever you got in here. I'm not going to do that because I subscribe to a Patreon. Actually, I'll show you guys. For like $1 a month, you can subscribe to these guys here. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I wish I was. But Shej and Piku, these guys sponsor the Pointy Hat all the time, and I am a patron of theirs for like $1, literally $1 a month. And for $1 a month, you can just get like shitloads here. I'll actually show you guys the collection. So this is the $1 a month collection. And like, are you ready for this? Look at all these maps you can grab. Look at all, for $1 a month, you can grab all of these, and they're yours to keep. You just download them, and then they're on your computer, and you just have them look at this. Look at all of this. So that's how easy it is to grab a map. So you grab a map, you throw some bandits here and there, but we do want to make a couple of plans, right? So we want to make sure that we have the things set up. So let's say we want to put 10 bandits in the hideout, right? They will run into 3 bandits at the entrance, 5 bandits at the middle, and then Gorosh and 2 bandits at the end. That's technically 11, but you get my point, right? That's basically how you want to set it up. You've got that little outline so you can place them in the map, you know, however you want, so that your players have a couple of things, right? And you might throw, if you're not doing this as a one-shot, if you're doing this as part of a normal session campaign for your players, then you can do something like throw a couple of trinkets in there. Say that they find a magic sword. That actually, we can actually put that here. You know, after they defeat Gorosh, of course they get the necklace back, but what else would they find? Maybe they'll find a +2 great axe that Gorosh had just kind of sitting there that he couldn't use because he's a filthy little goblin. Right? I'm kidding. But you know, they might find a +2 great axe. Maybe they'll find a ring of agility. And we can also throw in, like, say, like a 20 gold. Now, well, we have 3 people. Let's do 15 gold. Always try to keep your currency divisible among your players as evenly as possible to try to avoid inner conflicts. You know, no matter how much you trust your players, you always want your players to feel like, you know, they can divvy everything up evenly, just to make sure everything's there. And then finally, you might they go back to Bruce Campbell. And then you can put some stuff. You can, like, do some rewards. So let's say Bruce Campbell, you know, pays them 30 gold for the 30 gold for their troubles. And then you could do something like oh shit, what the fuck? And then you could do something like you know, you get 30 gold for your troubles, and Bruce gives them a certificate to the castle. Oh, there we go. Let's say your players are trying to get into the castle for your campaign. This could be more than a one-shot. You know, your players are trying to get into the castle for the campaign, and so you set this whole Baron thing up so that they could get a certificate to the castle so that they can actually get in to talk to the king about whatever world-ending event. And then at the end of the day, that's the end. That's how your players go through this session. It doesn't seem like much, right? Like there's only 4 bullet points. Like, that's not a very long session, but honestly, between the combat encounters, the role playing, them kind of thinking about what they're doing, you know, stuff like that, this is probably a good healthy 3 to 4 hour session at the very bare minimum, depending on how fast your players dispatch it. And if your players are a little bit stronger, then you just tweak these numbers a bit. You can bump this up to 20 bandits inside of the cavern and make it 5 at the entrance and then 10 in the middle, you know, and then Garrosh and say 4 bandits at the end or something like that, right? Did I do my math? Yeah, I did my math right. Hey, check it out. I did my math right on time. But you know what I mean? Like, you can crank these numbers up. That's the great thing about it. And if your players decide that they don't want to go for this necklace within the, you know, if this wasn't a one-shot, if this was just a normal session, they decide they don't want to go for this necklace, then that's okay. They don't have to go for the necklace. You can always take all of this crap and move it to a different campaign, or you can find a different way for them to get this certificate from the castle. And that's how you set up a session. So at the end, sorry that this isn't the setup I had in the beginning, but I don't feel like setting that up again right now, even though I'm gonna have to set it up for the next few videos. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This one ran a little bit longer than I expected, but this is basically how you set up a session, how you plan out a session. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you think down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.